Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Hello, Friends. This is episode 37, guys. Welcome to season 4, episode 6. Welcome to Project Potter. If you haven't seen the show before, my name is Kyle. This is the Mr. Robot Review Show, guys. We're making our way through. We're doing a recap of every episode. We are doing a White Rose Award, which goes to our favorite actor or actress, and a score out of 10. So yeah, if you haven't seen the show before, guys, or haven't been to the channel before, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoy, and away we go. Okay, guys, so we start this episode with a close-up on Vera, played by Elliot VR, and boy, does he put on a performance. And we get the riveting tale, Christmas tale, of the bully and the little bitch. And let me tell you, dude, Elliot VR absolutely knocks this one out of the park, pun intended. He is so menacing, and he's got like this bleach blonde hair, and he's got like the 5 o'clock shadow, kind of similar to what I've got right now. And he's got Krista tied up. So if you remember, guys, last time Krista got home, and he's like, I think it's time we talk. And so this is kind of picking up where that left off, where Elliot's there, and he's at the kitchen island, and he's like cutting up some fruit, but he's telling a story, and he's got like his henchman in the back there with a red coat, Peanuts, I think his name is, and then Javier, I think, is the other one, and he's standing by the door, and they're in Krista's apartment, but he's telling Krista the story. He's like, one day there was a bully, and there was this little bitch, and he's like, and little bitch got bullied every day. He's like, if little bitch had money, then little bitch got robbed. And he keeps telling the story over and over. It's like comical, but it's really dark at the same time. And the way that Vera just like delivers these lines is unreal. And so basically he tells a story about how he was a little bitch in the story. And he's like, he was getting bullied every day. And he's like, one day though, he's like, for Christmas, there's one thing that little bitch loved. And he's like, little bitch loved baseball. And so he's like, he got that Easton bat. He's like super shiny, really nice. He's like with a little bow on it. And he's like, then without warning on Christmas Day, the bully came over. And what did he do? But he knocked him out. And he's like, thwack. And he like hits the counter and like shakes the ball. And Krista's like taken back. And he's like knocked every single tooth out of that skull. He's like popped his eyeball out. He's like within an inch of his life. And so he tells this frightening story about how he was bullied, and he got a bat. And he's like, that bat was made to play ball, but he's like, that was not its purpose. And Vera talks a lot about purpose and cosmos and all that, and he gets into that. But he goes up to Krista, and he kind of holds, probably would have been better to hold a knife up, but he holds up a spoon to Krista, like her neck, and he goes, why am I telling you this story? He's like, because you, Miss Krista, are my aluminum bat. And he's like, you are going to be what I use to break Elliot. Then we get the Mr. Robot title card, and the music is so good, and it's like, ooh, gives you chills, dude, because it's the way he tells it. The lighting is absolutely insane too. There's like a bright ray of light coming in, and like he walks through it, and it's just, he's wearing like this yellow like track jumpsuit, but man, Elliot VR just absolutely kills it in this role. So, and this is the first time we've really seen him since I think season 2. For the prison break. So we saw him kind of a teaser a few episodes ago, but this is where we get full Vera, and it is a sight to behold, dude. But we get the title card. We actually get a shot of Elliot, who's hanging out in Ron's coffee. It's no longer Ron's coffee, it's now Todd's coffee. They like repurposed it after Elliot called the cops on him in the pilot, and it's cool because he goes back there and the tables are a little different, and it's like Todd's coffee. But I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely Ron's coffee. Darlene calls him, and they're like, hey, we're going to do we got the Deus group meeting tonight. And she's like, we're going to like get this done tonight, and we'll take them down once and for all. She's like, keep your phone on you. She's like, I set up a GPS link so that like, I know where you are. And she's like, I don't want to lose you again. And he's like, all right, sounds good. And he's like, all right, I got to go. And they hang up. And Leon walks in, played by Joey Badass. And this is awesome because we haven't seen him, I think, since, well, season 3, I guess, with the Dark Army stuff, probably the verbal confirmation episode with Irving when he's in the barn. But yeah, he shows up and he's like, what's up, Elliot? What's up, cuz? He's like, it's been a minute. And it's always great when Joey Badass shows up. So they start talking, and he literally sits down, and Elliot's like, I gotta go. He's like, already, cuz? He's like, I thought we were gonna catch up. And Elliot's like, nah, dude, I gotta go. And he's like, shoot. He's like, all right, well, he's like, be strange, but don't be a stranger. And I'm like, just a great line, dude. But we cut back to Darlene, and she's like about to leave. It's really Angela's old place, and she sees Angela's shoes, and she gets kind of sad, but she puts those in her backpack, and she turns around, and Dom is there with a gun. And she's like, how did you get in here? And I don't think we ever get that question answered, but Dom like basically gets into the place there. That's going to be trouble, but we get back to that. We cut back to the coffee shop where Joey Badass leaves, and then Elliot, we know he's got to leave in a second, but he gets some coffee first. He gets peppermint mocha, 2 of those, and we think he's getting it for maybe Mr. Robot because it's him and Mr. Robot there, but we find out why in a bit. So back to Dom and Darlene. Dom is like, Darlene, you should have kept on driving. She's like, I don't know why you stopped. And you can tell Dom is just like, she's focused on her mission now. Like, she is full Dark Army now. We're mostly full Dark Army. And so, you know, she's like, just sit down. And then she calls Janice, and Janice is still working on that fake dog, the white dog that lady threw down on the counter a few episodes ago. It's really like she's putting a bow on it and a hairpin. And Dom calls her, and she's like, hey, I got her. She's like, I got Darlene right here. She's like, oh, interesting. And she's like, and her brother? And she's like, no, he's not here, but, you know, their phones are hacked. So she's like, they just need her to unlock the phone and we'll get it. So Janice tells Dom, she's like, okay, cool, I'll be over at 3:30 sharp. We're like, cool. And then we cut back to Elliot, and he shows up at Olivia's apartment. Remember, Olivia is the girl who had the OkCupid date, and then she was at the bar alone, and we thought the guy blew her off. And then Elliot got her Cyprus National Bank pin. And then, of course, Darlene was like, hey, that wasn't enough access. That's why they had the hack into Virtual Realty. So we're back here, and Elliot goes back to her, and we're like, why is he going back to Olivia? But we understand that they're running out of time, and Elliot still needs to get this done. So he shows up at the door, and he's like, I brought peppermint mocha. And she's like, oh, that's really sweet. She's like, come on in. And Elliot walks in there, and he's like, what I'm about to tell you is going to be really crazy, but he's like, I just need you to listen to me. And she's like, what's going on? And he's like, I need you to call your boss for Cyprus National Bank. And he's like, I need him to log in so that I can get his password. And she's like holding his hand at first, and she stops. And she's like, I never told you where I worked. And he's like, I know, I hacked you. And she's like, why? And Elliot's like, understand that like you're working for an offshore bank. He's like, you know that they're part of all the attacks, right? He's like, all of the wars here. He's like, he says like the Gulf War. He says both Iraq wars. He says the cyber bombings. He's like, that's not even their top 5. He's like, you're working for a good company. He's like, they're just using you. And she's like, they're using me. He's like, look, just make a phone call to your boss and have him sign in. And he's like, oh, then I'm gone. That's all I need. And she's like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, he goes to leave, and he goes, what happens if you fail a drug test? And she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I've been 8 years Oxy clean. And he's like, not anymore. And then it cuts down to the peppermint mocha cup, and it's like, oh, Elliot, dude, you crossed the line, my friend. He drugged her peppermint mocha, and she just sipped it. And she's like, are you kidding me? And he's like, it's the only way I knew you would listen. And it's really heartbreaking. It's really sad. Because Elliot's going to the extremes, and Mr. Robot does tell him, I think, before they're buying the peppermint mocha, he's like, you understand that if we do this, we can't go back, right? He's like, this is dark even for us. And we don't know what he's talking about yet, but now we find out that, yeah, he drugs Olivia, and she's like, you just drugged a drug addict. She's like, you understand, you just ruined my life. And he's like, you'll recover. And she's like, you arrogant son of a bitch. Like, probably because Elliot knows that he was also addicted, but yeah, so they kind of sit down, and then we cut to Minister Zhang and like his new assistant, and there's like a whole bunch of equations in front of the board there, and she shows him the screenshot of the traffic cam stop with Darlene and Elliot, and she's like, hey, you know, we have Darlene, but we're looking for Elliot, but we should have his location soon. And then she's like, I think we should, and Mr. Zhang is like, do you think we should what? What do you think? And she's like, I think we should get rid of him. He's a liability. And Mr. Zhang is like, you understand that if we kill Mr. Alderson, his shipping hack dies with it, right? He's like, do you understand that we can't just do that? He's like, Mr. Alderson is too valuable. He's like, when we get him, bring him in. And he's like, I need to talk to him. And so he's kind of like talking back to his assistant. His assistant doesn't know shit, and BD Wong's like, yo, I still run the shots here. Okay, I'm still White Rose, in case you haven't remembered. So we cut back to Dom and Darlene, and Dom is holding a gun at her. And this is when Janice calls again, and Janice says, like, hey, by the way, if it's just Darlene's phone that we need, she's like, just go ahead and kill Darlene. And she's like, what? And she's like, you even said it yourself. She's like, we don't need Darlene. We just need her phone. So she's like, just go ahead and kill her. It's easier that way. It's cleaner. And like the music kind of hones in, and obviously Dom doesn't want to do this. And she's like, Dom, let me know right now. She's like, if you're not, I'm 100% sure. She's like, no, I am. She's like, okay, because I just want to remind you that, like, remember last time you were only 99% sure. She's like, you know what happened? And Dom's like, I'll take care of it. Like, she's like, just let me know right now. She's like, if I need to set aside time so I can kill your entire family. And I was like, damn, Janice. Janice is so evil, dude. The actress is great. She does an amazing job of being like bubbly and like normal, but so evil in the way she says things, and where she's just like, I'll kill your entire family. It's like, it's really good. So as much as I hate the character Janice, she does a great job of like making us feel hatred for that character. So what Dom does, she's like, get up. She throws Darlene like in the tub, and she's like, what are you doing, dude? And there's an incredible scene, both acting between Dom and so between Grace Gummer and between Carly is Darlene. Darlene is like kind of crying in the tub, and she's like, what are you doing? She's like, you're just going to kill me? She's like, that's not going to get you what you want. And Dom is like, I'm in this situation because of you. She's like, you ruined my life. And she's like, I know that. But she's like, we can get out of this, please. She's like, we're going to take down Dark Army tonight in the Deus group. She's like, I swear to you. She's like, just let me go, and we're going to figure this out. And then she's like, no, there is no way out. She's like, if I don't do this, like, they kill my family. And she's like, you fucking ruined my life. And then like she puts the gun like closer to her head, and Darlene is like, crying against the wall. She's like, Dom, don't do this. She's like, I'm sorry. She's like, don't be sorry. Don't be fucking sorry. And then I think like Dom says again, like, you did this. And she's like, I know. And, eventually the pressure gets to Dom, but she's like, Dom, you're a good person. You shouldn't do this. And Dom hits her, like knocks her with the gun and like knocks her out for a little bit. But for the moment, she saves Darlene's life at the end, and she's kind of freaking out. But that's an amazing scene. Like they're both so good. I want to give a slight tip of the cap to Carly there. But they're both just phenomenal actresses in that scene. So shout out to Grace and Carly for that one. We cut back to Olivia, and she's now sitting down at the table with Elliot, and she's really good at just like acting like messed up. And Elliot's, his kind of expressionless monotone sitting there, great in the hoodie. And so she calls, and she's like leaving a message for her boss, and she's like, I know it's Christmas, but she's like, it's very urgent. Please just have him call me. And like, all right, we'll pass the message along. And she's like, all right. So then they're just waiting, and she's like, they're going to call back soon. But she's like, you're a piece of shit. You know that? And he's like, look, this is the only way. I'm running out of time. And he's like, I had no other way to do it. And, they have this conversation. So eventually she's like, whatever, we have to wait now. And she's like, I got to use the bathroom. She's like, and Elliot's like, go ahead. And then she's about to go in there, and she's like, fucking me. Was that part of the plan too? Or was that just a happy accident? And he's like, Elliot, Elliot does a great job here, or Rami, I should say. He like looks away. And what I love about a lot of their conversation is that we know Elliot like almost never looks someone in the eyes. So he always is, he's like looking straight ahead at the floor. It's really great. But Elliot is kind of like, it was an accident. And she's like, how sweet. And it's so depressing. And it's so sad. And it's like, poor Olivia, man. She actually liked Elliot. And it turns out he was just using her for the access there. But he's like, I didn't plan on sleeping with you. And he's like, I did like you. And she's like, wow, what a gentleman. And she walks into the bathroom, and then then Mr. Robot sits down with Elliot. And once again, dude, Mr. Robot is talking to us, the audience, and it's so nice. And I love when they do that. This has been kind of a theme in season 4, but he talks about how he's like, oh, it's that dread. He's like, the dread you feel when you've crossed a line that you didn't even know existed. He's like, it's good though, because once you cross the line and you feel that dread, he's like, it means you still have lines to cross. And he's like, once you get those cross lines behind you, he's like, only darkness awaits ahead of you. And then we hear like a thud, and Elliot goes into the bathroom, and he scrambles, and Olivia slit both of her wrists, and she's like bleeding out. So Elliot's like quickly grabbing. It's really excellent job of them to kind of put the scene out there, because it looks just so, what they did for the blood effects looks awesome. It looks exactly like blood. It's so like disturbing and like unsettling, but it's like an aerial shot, and she's got her wrist down, and she's like against the wall there, and there's like a little bit of blood on the toilet, and yeah, she's just like bleeding out. Elliot's grabbing all the white towels in the bathroom and like wrapping them up super quickly, trying to save her life. So that's crazy, and the music again is like brooding and dark. So we cut back to Vera, and Peanuts is in the back like eating some fruit, and Vera's still talking to Krista, and she's like, this isn't going to work on me. She's like, just because that you were bullied when you were little, and then one day you decided to swing back. She's like, that doesn't work. You lashing out, that doesn't work on me. And he's like, did you just call me a little bitch? He's like, you got to be kidding me. And then she's like, Krista like realizes the magnitude of what she's done. And he's like, Peanuts. He's like, you hear that? You hear her call me a little bitch? And he's like, yeah, she called you a little bitch. And then he's like, Javier, you hear that? He's like, call me a little bitch. And he's like, that's what I heard. And I was like, oh no, Krista, like, what did you do? And then Jason shows up, her boyfriend, and he's knocking on the door, and she's like, Jason, and they put her like gag back in, or the cloth back in, so she can't speak. And he's like, maybe we should invite Jason in, have a nice Mary. And she's like, no. And eventually they don't bring him in because they don't want to blow the cover. But Jason does kind of go down outside. But before that, we do cut back to Krista, and now she's like come to, and her wrists are all wrapped up, and it's bloody. And Elliot's like was able to stop the bleeding. He gives her the phone, and it turns out she's got 3 missed calls from her boss. He's like, just one call, and I'm gone. And she's like, what's terrible? She's like, Elliot, I may work for monsters, but she's like, but you are one. And she's like, and the worst part is you don't even know it. And it's like this dark music that comes in, and I was like, oh my God, dude. And the actress that plays Olivia, I just want to give her a shout out, because she is so good in this role. And she's really, really good at like really portraying in the screen that she is suicidal and she is depressed. And it just took that one slip up, like she hasn't done Oxy in 8 years, she says. And it takes that one little slip up to get into her system. And for her, like she says, if I ever start using it again, I'm going to hate myself and I might as well kill myself. And it took 1 second for her to like slit her wrist and be like, my life is meaningless. And it's crazy. She does a great job acting. And the fact that she's like, I was fine, and you drugged a drug addict. And she's like, now basically she's working for him. And she's like, you are the real monster. And I was like, wow, dude. But she does call the boss, and she's like, hey, she's like, I need the authorization to make a transfer. And she's like, oh, you don't see the request? She's like, I'm sorry, I thought it was urgent. And then Elliot checks his phone, and like the request shows up, and then he gets the password, and he just gives her like a nod. He's like, we're good. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. She's like, I must have misunderstood. She's like, I'll check with him and get back to you. I'm so sorry. And then she's like, Merry Christmas to you too. And she does a great job, because she's like stumbling through it, and her voice is shaking, and it's crazy. But Elliot's like, I got what I need. And yeah, it's just dark. And this poor woman is like she said, she's like, the ramifications are going to be bad. She's like, this isn't just like, a quick drug test and then she's done. It's like she's going to be addicted again. So it's super depressing, and it's a really dark line that Elliot crossed there. But he ends up leaving. We cut back to I want to say Elliot because it's played by Elliot VR, but Vera and Krista, and Jason's downstairs. He's like, oh, your boy's pissed. He's like, he's really mad that we didn't let him in. But they have like a little conversation here, and Elliot's like, excuse me, not Elliot. Technically Elliot, but Vera like gets real close to Krista, and he's like, I just need you to know that like the next words that come out of your mouth, he's like, they need to be exactly what I want to hear. He's like, not for my sake. He's like, for your sake. And so now he's just threatening her, and Krista knows that like, and he's gonna kill the boyfriend, because he's like, it's, and not only their sake, he's like, your boy's sake. He's like, Jason, is it? He's like, lives at 1404 J Ave or whatever. He's like, yeah, I need you to tell me exactly what I want to hear. And so he kind of undoes her, like her gag there. And she says, go to my office. And she's like, on the bottom of the bottom cabinet there, she's like, there's a folder that says September 2015. And she's like, look for Elliot's name there. And she's like, that's what you're looking for. And he's like, what am I going to find there? And she goes, Mr. Robot. And it's like, brr, and the music plays. And I had chills, dude. And he's like, and what is that? What is that exactly? And I kind of wish that they didn't like they left it there before he says that. But she says, that's how you're going to break Elliot. And I was like, oh, okay, dude. So we cut back to Dom and Darlene, and it's now 3:25, and she's got 5 minutes before Janice shows up. And Dom is sitting on the toilet, and Darlene comes to in the bathtub, and her head's all messed up. And she's like, oh, my head hurts. And she's like, I thought you were going to kill me. And she's like, look, just unlock your phone. She's like, all they want is Elliot's location. She's like, they can still make a run for it. Darlene's like, I'm not going to do that, dude. She's like, I can't give up Elliot. And she's like, I'm out of time. And she's like, get up. And they go over to the, like in front of the door in the living room. She holds the gun to her chest, and she's like, okay. She's like, you got the jump on me. She's like, it's no problem. She's like, if you run now, you can probably still get away. And she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, pull the trigger, Darlene. She's like, I need you to fucking kill me. And she's like, what? I'm not going to kill you. And she's like, Darlene, please. She's like, I've been thinking about it every day for the last 2 weeks. She's like, if I could do it myself, I would. And I was like, oh my God, dude, poor Dom is like, we had Olivia, who was suicidal. And then we get Dom, who we found out was suicidal, and we didn't know that. Obviously, we knew she was having a hard time with it. But the fact that Dom is like, I've been thinking about killing myself for 2 weeks, and I just don't have the courage to do it. She's like, fucking pull the trigger. And it's a really intense scene. And again, Carly and Grace are so good in this episode. And they're like kind of screaming at each other. And she's like, I'm not going to fucking kill you. And then 3:30 comes over, and Janice pops up, and she walks in on them, and she's like, oh. She's like, huh. She's like, I did not expect this. And it's like, I kind of laughed, and I was like, damn it, Janice, I know you're up to no good, but that was a good line there. She's like, oh, Dominique. She's like, don't worry. She's like, I'm not going to kill you. But she's like, but this is going to be very painful for you. And it's like, oh no, dude. And then she just knows that she's going to kill her whole family, probably slowly. And then she takes Darlene's phone, and she points the gun at her. And she's like, I just want you to know that this is not personal. She's like, my mission was to find your brother. So she's like, you are just like a liability or whatever. And Darlene is freaking out. She starts crying. And she's like, well, if you're looking for my phone, it's not going to help you because I just wiped it. And Janice is like, and she looks at the phone, and it says like data wipe complete. And she's like, oh. And he's like, oh. And I was like, I'm right there with you, Janice. And so she kind of looks at her, and then we're like, well, this is a plot twist now. So like they do need Darlene. So great move by Darlene to be like, oh, you need my phone? Actually, dude, I'm going to wipe it. Now I'm the only one who can find Elliot. And they know that for a fact, because if they kill her, obviously they're not going to find Elliot. And yeah, it's crazy. So we cut back to Mr. Robot and Elliot walking out of the subway, and it says there's a billboard that says the future has a silver lining. So some foreshadowing there. But Elliot's got the hood on, and he gets a call from Krista, and she's like, Elliot, I've been kidnapped. She's like, I need you to, like, I went to the police, and now I'm afraid, and I'm too afraid to go home. And he's like, okay, can you meet me at the Washington Township Park or whatever? And she's like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, all right, I'm heading there. And he starts going. And Mr. Robot's talking to us again, and he's like, can you believe this? He's like, obviously it's a trap. But he's like, here he goes playing hero again. He's like, even though we just saw what he did and no one did anything. And it's like, damn, Mr. Robot. Like, even he's like, dude, we got to watch out for Elliot. And so he goes down the subway stairs, and he comes up, and then he starts walking towards there. But we see the kid Peanuts in the coat there waiting by the car. Elliot gets jumped. He's thrown in the trunk in like broad daylight, and no one says anything. So this was kind of weird, but it's whatever. They get like an old Plymouth, and they start driving away. And they drive off there. And that is how the episode ends. And I just want to point out here, guys, really, really nice gesture by Sam and the Mr. Robot team. So the credits roll, and then they stop for a second, and it says, they put up the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It says, if you or someone you know needs help finding crisis resources, visit National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. They give the number, and then suicidepreventionlifeline.org. So super, super classy move from them to be like, hey, we're putting in not one but two instances of suicidal thoughts here. but it's almost like, even though this is a show, obviously based on reality, and like people are going to watch it and connect to the show. And so they're basically like, hey, just so you know, like your life matters and everyone's life matters. And it's like, if you're feeling like this, there is help for you. So I thought that was a super nice way for them to wrap up the episode. But yeah, that's how the episode wraps. Okay, guys, so the White Rose for this one, there were a lot of fantastic performances in this one. I really strongly considered giving it to either Carly as Darlene, because she was excellent, Grace as Dom, and their scenes together especially were phenomenal. And then I also thought about giving it to Olivia, because she was just absolutely excellent of playing that like broken girl who was a former addict. And Elliot says, he's like, if you don't do what I tell you to do, you're gonna lose your son. So he blackmails her, but she does a really good job of being like, wow, this is really fucked up. And then realizing that she's been drugged, and then like telling Elliot that he's a monster. He doesn't realize it yet. That all of that, I thought she was excellent. But there's one shining performance, guys, that I just cannot rightfully not award, and that is Elliot VR as Fernando Vera, dude. Oh my God. From the moment where he tells a story about the little bitch, and it's funny, but it's super dark, and the way that he's like, he tells Krista, I don't think I talked about this earlier, he tells Krista, like, I want to break Elliot down and then heal his wounds. So he's like, that's how you own someone. It's not the word he says, but I'm not going to repeat that on the show here. But it's just like, man, he's so captivating. And it's like every line he says is like chilling, and you're just listening to every single line. And it's like, Vera was interesting in season 1, and then obviously in season 2, where he like coerces Elliot to break him out of prison. But this is Elliot, it's funny that he's like, I'm going to break down Elliot, when his real name is Elliot. So it's like he's kind of talking to himself. But Vera is at the peak of his powers in this season, and especially like in this episode and the ones to come, where it's like, we've never seen Vera like this. We've gotten glimpses of him, like how dangerous he can be. I mean, he ends up killing his own brother, really, when he gets out of prison, because he thinks he's going against him. And so Vera doesn't care, and he'll stop at nothing to work with Elliot and like he says, break him down and build him up. He's like, I need an architect for my kingdom. So he mentions that like we all have a purpose, and he's always mentioning the spirits and the cosmos. And man, Elliot VR is so good as Fernando Vera, and just like he's so chilling. Like every line and every story that he tells, and you're really fearful for Krista's life, and you're like, as the viewer, you're like, wow, this dude is psycho, and he will do anything at any moment, because he believes in his journey so much that he's like, it doesn't matter who's in the way. And we thought Jason was going to die there. It's really good that he got away, but yeah, it's just crazy. And the fact that he's, threatening Krista, and she's like, that's not going to work on me. And then he's like, oh, did you just call me a little bitch? And then she realizes the gravity of her mistake. And she's like, oh shit, dude. Like, she's like, that's bad news. So yeah, Elliot VR, 100%. Like I said, pun intended in this case, home run, knocked it out of the park, whatever you want to call it, absolutely crushed it. And he is the above and beyond White Rose winner for this week. Okay, guys, so for this episode, I'm going to give this one a 9.6. It's a very strong episode. It's just the score, the cinematography, but mostly the dialogue, and just the mood and the atmosphere and the themes that it deals with. Like I said, where we have Olivia, who literally who's like, things are going relatively well for her. And even though they're using her at Cyprus National Bank, and maybe she's blissfully unaware, Ellie does say, like, you're not dumb. He's like, you had to have known that you were working for an offshore bank for this group. And he's like, you're helping these terrorists, basically. But she's like, you know what? Ignorance is bliss, basically. And she's like doing better. And she used to be a junkie and all that. For her to kind of go down that dark path again, literally attempt suicide, only for Elliot to save her, who's the one who put her in that situation. It's crazy. We get more Mr. Robot talking to us, which is phenomenal. But then we get Dom, who is like, just pull the trigger. She's like, I want to die. That's crazy. And she, there's no escape for her. And now Janice is there. And it's like, how is that going to work out? And we know they can't be in a good spot now that Darlena's wiped her phone. So yeah, the score, Elliot especially, both Elliot VR and Elliot, the character stood out for me, and just an excellent episode all around, and just a great time. All right, guys. Well, that is it. That is another episode of Hello Friends. This is episode 37, I believe. So we're making our way through. We're almost halfway through the final season, sadly. But things are ramping up, and we got Vera in full destroy mode, and now he's going to get the file on Mr. Robot, so he's going to find out about Elliot's deepest, darkest secrets, and it's that's going to be just a battle of wits, and I cannot wait. We still have everything going on with White Rose and the Deus meeting that probably is going to happen next episode, because we got hints of it in this episode, and it is Christmas Day, I think, when this happens, but this is all kind of happening very quickly. It was Christmas Eve, I think, either the last episode or the episode before, so all of these events are taking place within a 24 to 48 hour radius, but yeah, just an amazing show, guys. I've said it before, I love this show, and season 4 is no exception to that rule. So thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. Thanks for checking out Hello Friends. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell notification. Go check out the other content, of course. But until next time, guys, goodbye, friend.